welcome to That's Wow. I'm Xiaoyun, a nature guide and environmental educator, and I'll be your host for this podcast series. We will be talking to a variety of special guests about some wow and wonderful topics surrounding nature conservation in Singapore, our city in nature. That's Wow is brought to you by the National Parks Board. If you like our content, don't forget to show your support by hitting that follow button and giving us a 5-star rating. For this episode, we are very excited to have Choon Beng, who's in charge of wildlife management in NParks, as well as Ingg and Thong, who are reptile and amphibian enthusiasts. We'll be speaking about encounters with wildlife in Singapore, how human-wildlife relations are managed here, and what it really means to live in a city in nature.
Hello, I'm Choon Beng and I'm working in National Parks Wildlife Management.
Hello everyone, I'm Thong. I'm a zoology graduate and also a big lover of reptiles and amphibians.
Hello, I'm Ingg. Again, I'm also a zoology graduate. I enjoy looking for snakes and other amphibians in our nature reserves in my free time.
So to start us off, maybe we can go around the table, speak about close encounters with potentially dangerous or scary animals.
Oh yeah, so this was very, very early on when we started herping. So we were down in the mangroves catching snakes. And that night was very weirdly dry, so I had not seen any snakes at all. Then the first thing I saw was this snake covered in mud on the ground. And I was really excited to try and catch it because that would be the first snake of the entire survey. So I reached down, almost grabbed it. Then I saw the head. It was almost like a lanceolate shape, so like a lance head, and that was the mangrove pit viper. So I was lucky that I saw the head because some of the bites from the mangrove pit vipers can be exceptionally nasty. You will need a lot of medical intervention.
Personally, I think I should say for this particular question, I wouldn't necessarily say scary because scary is a personal opinion, and I don't think any animals are scary. For potentially dangerous, I do agree that a lot of animals can be dangerous, but it also depends on the situation in which you encounter them. Whether or not they are disturbed or whether or not you are encroaching on their space. I think I was giving a guided walk a couple of months ago, it might have been last year, and there was just this very, very huge Malayan water monitor. But this one was exceptionally large and it was sleeping across the path. And the thing is, because I was guiding, I didn't see it. So one of the spotters, he actually told me, whoa, okay, you're about to step on it. But thankfully, it wasn't angry or anything. It was very chill. For those of you who don't know, monitor lizards have a very strong tail. And if they are disturbed or cornered, they can use it as a whip. And I can tell you the tails are very hard. And I would not like to get hit by one, definitely.
I've come across quite a few number of animals and most of them avoid you but the only one time when an animal charged at me, it was really aggressive and it was vocalizing, bristling and all that. That was just at one time.
What animal was that?
It was someone who lost his koi to otters.
So I assume he was very, very upset with it.
I got it. I was like, yeah, okay, so yeah. We did speak about how wildlife management is also about people management.
Yeah,
totally, yeah.
In that sense, we can also think about how we humans are also perceived by the animals as dangerous, to be honest. Most of the times when animals react in a so-called a violent way, it's actually in defense. Maybe we can talk about how human-wildlife conflicts and relations are managed in Singapore. There are very recent cases that quite a number, for instance, how a crocodile that appeared in East Coast was put down for public safety. So maybe this is where we turn to Choon Beng and we think about what are some of the factors that NParks took into consideration when deciding on the final approach and the recommendation for managing the crocodile.
So ultimately, the objective of what we do is to actually promote coexistence, right? But coexistence is often, I think, not clearly defined. Actually, what does it mean to actually coexist? Everybody appreciates nature, right? You have all these YouTube videos playing sounds of running stream and all that, right? But a lot of people, when they want this greenery, they want it filtered. I want the fresh air, but make sure the fresh air doesn't come with any flying insects. Oh, I love butterflies. But can you make sure that there are no caterpillars that come with it? So we really got to know our nature better and know this is the package deal. This comes along with it. And then once you have the package deal, right, and then there are some things that are going to be inconvenient, we got to learn how to deal with it. And that's our job actually, to make sure that everybody is brought together and understand how we can coexist with the nature that we have in our midst. So we were talking about wildlife management, right? Whilst I did say that we will try to actually get everybody to appreciate and then learn more about our wild neighbors, there are certain criteria that we actually must stand by. First and foremost, human safety of our citizens, our members of public has to be foremost. And then when it comes to that, animals like crocodile and wild boars, there's a chance that we cannot take. And hence, the management of these animals will be different from how we manage other species.
I think to add a bit more on that, it's not only important to protect the people who are interacting with these wildlife, but it's also important for the conservation of those animals as well. Because if someone is attacked by a crocodile or gets got by a wild boar or something like that, public perception will turn very, very against those animals. And it works against the efforts that NParks has been doing, that a lot of other NGOs have been doing to promote sort of coexistence with wildlife.
Also, to chime in on crocodiles especially, I know for a lot of wildlife advocates, we try and advocate for awareness of the animals, and so we can actually give them a wide berth. I don't think that's very possible with a crocodile, especially in muddy waters, because you don't see it. It's an animal that has evolved very cryptic colors, very cryptic behavior to hunt mammalian prey. So I think we have to balance that with maybe signages and stuff. And especially when some of these animals disperse outside of their natural range, one of them turning up at Marina East is nobody expects it to be there. Even East Coast Park, some of these urban areas, nobody would expect a crocodile to be there.
There's a bunch of comments online about why don't we just try to do some other methods or some other solutions, such as putting a tracker on a croc.
Yeah. What we're afraid of is a false negative. That means you think that the crocodile is not there, but actually it's there, and that's because of a failure of your equipment to detect it. Because no equipment could be 100%.
Maybe we can spend a bit more time thinking about if there were any other ways that the management of crocs can be handled, especially going to the long term. Or is the long-term solution still kind of the same? Meaning if there are red zones whereby in the name of public safety, they will always have to be put down.
Now, crocodiles are part of our native fauna. However, the reality is that we cannot allow crocodiles to be in areas where there is high urban concentration of people, high usage, high recreational activities, that kind of stuff. So one way we are doing it is you have zones where you actually don't allow crocodiles to be in. There's zero tolerance. If there's a crocodile there, it has to be removed. And then there are places where you will actually allow the crocodile to be there under watch. And then there are places where the crocodile should be and allowed to be. But these places, you don't need to actively manage unless there's a problematic animal that is causing maybe potential danger to people nearby. Maybe a place like that would be Sungai Buloh. However, even if a crocodile is removed, the first consideration is to see whether we can actually relocate or rehome it. And then if there's a possibility, yes, we'll do that. But if there are no places where it can be placed in, then it will be put down.
Yeah, I think another thing that's important to consider when talking about how crocodiles can be managed long term is definitely the education aspect, because you can only go so far with managing a population of wild animals. And I think there are people in Singapore who don't even know we have crocodiles. And then there are those group of people who think crocodiles are only found in Sungai Buloh and not anywhere else. So I feel people, members of the public, have a look at the world with a certain dichotomy, right? They're either in nature or they're not. So they don't realize that nature is all around them, especially in Singapore, which is quite a unique space because we live so close to our forests and our shores, to the point where you're almost always interacting in some form with wildlife or nature around you. And I think it's that public perception that has to change, where people need to be aware or more aware of their surroundings and what they're interacting with.
Before we continue, let's take a pause here for a fun mid-episode break. In the spirit of our podcast title, That's Wow, Ingg and Thong will now share something cool or bizarre, interesting about an animal or a plant that you guys may not have known before. Take it away.
There's this frog called the Lim's sticky frog in Singapore, and it's actually been known to lay its eggs and have its tadpoles swim around in pitcher plants. When people talk about pitcher plants, you usually think about insects getting trapped in there and then getting digested and whatnot. And then you have a frog literally just leaving its offspring in the pitcher plant. And actually, the reason why they can survive in that, they choose a species of pitcher plant that doesn't have very acidic or very concentrated, I suppose, digestive enzymes within their pitchers, which is very cool, in my opinion.
I've got a fun fact. if we take our blood and then we analyze the chromosomes, then we know whether you took blood from a guy or girl, right? And you do that with all animals. You can't do that with crocs. Yeah, because the sex of the crocodile is determined by the temperature at which the egg was hatched. So it can go either way.
So how would you then determine the sex of the crocodile? Just have to be visual, is it?
So you got to make sure that the crocodile is sedated, and then you put the finger into the cloaca.
Also to see if it's hemipenis or the... Okay,
No, I think crocodiles do they have hemipenis?
So there'll be a structure there. And if you feel it, then it's a male. But usually, like if it's more than like 3.5 meters for saltwater, right? It's a male. Yeah. The females don't go that big.
We want to talk a bit about human-snake conflicts, from maybe the ones that are like really commonly encountered, from like house wolf snakes and oriental whips to like some that are potentially more dangerous, for instance, like king cobras, blue corals.
The last time anyone was killed by a venomous snake in Singapore was in 1995. So I think the idea that snakes are dangerous or they're out to get you and they're out to kill you is a misconception, and it's a misunderstanding that many members of the public actually have due to the portrayal of these animals in the media and how they are. Of course, everyone knows an uncle's friend's daughter who got attacked by a snake or something back when she was living in the kampong or something like that. So it's never first-hand experience that makes people scared of snakes. It's more of what they've heard or what they've seen. Yeah. And of course, this can have disastrous effects on individuals, as seen by the case earlier this year where the python was killed in Boon Lay, and the python didn't actively attack anyone. They actually had to provoke it, and then the guy was bitten. So you very rarely, I would say almost never, get snakes actively attacking people. There's always a reason, like for example, someone accidentally stepped on the tail, or someone grabbed it, or someone disturbed it to the point where it actually felt like it needed to attack. Yeah.
So apart from snakes, have you guys had any other personal encounters with other kinds of wild animals?
When I was younger, we had a little piglet that was in a small enclosure. I was trying to guide it out, but it was threatened by me. It charged at me, and then it ran at me, nipped me, and then ran back. And I didn't even have time to react. And then we've seen, like in Ubin time, we have a wild boar that just like got panicked, and then there was a chain link fence, the green wire fence, chain, bam, and then it created a hole. It was like hot knife through butter, just bam, through.
It's actually interesting to see how large the wild boar population has gotten in Singapore. And again, it's because of the absence of predators.
And in Singapore, sometimes you also get a lot of people feeding them. I think there was like this famous wild boar in Pulau Ubin, near Chek Jawa. The van uncle, every time when he drove by, he would feed the wild boars. And this wild boar basically doesn't move anywhere else. He's always at Chek Jawa. He or she, okay, she was always at Chek Jawa. And she was very friendly to the point where the van driver could like pet her and stuff. But it's also not very good for a wild animal to be that friendly. And again, when people see this sort of thing, they are going to think that it's okay to go up to a wild boar and pet it. And that's how you get wildlife conflict. Because not all animals are going to react the same way. Not all people are going to react the same way also. And when you have these two very unpredictable situations coming together, you will definitely have conflict.
And this is a problem in not really understanding our wildlife. So, like people think that something that looks furry and cute, it must be quite docile, right? So if people think that you can take close Wi-Fi with the otter. The otters are really like the dominant fellows in the ecosystem. So just because they're furry and cute, people think that you can take liberties with it. That's just not a way. But a snake is just like, forgive me, but uglier, right? it's not so attractive, and people like you attribute a lot of evilness to it when it's not founded lah.
And I think that you actually brought up an interesting point by referring to like how a snake looks, because another reason why I think a lot of people are more wary or even hate snakes is because of how different they look from mammals. Like I think there was a few studies showed that the closer something looked to a human or a mammal, the more we relate to that animal. And of course, snakes are very, very different. They're not even in the same, they're reptiles. So there is that difference in biology that separates us.
But if that's true, why do I have so many people like grieving over monkeys? really like a lot of angst over monkeys.
When the members of public dislike macaques, they are only interacting with macaques when the macaques are not interacting in a natural behavior, when they are getting fed and they are like demanding food from people. This is not a natural behavior for most macaques. If you actually go and see them in the nature reserves, rather than the road fringes where they expect food, when they're in the forest, they don't expect food and they're foraging for like fallen fruits and stuff and like playing and sometimes just jumping into the reservoirs. It's actually quite endearing to watch
It's
them.
joyful, right?
Yes,
It's quite
yes.
nice to
Like
see,
when
right?
they are naturally behaving and when their behavior is not impacted by humans.
I think this actually links to our discussion about like public attitudes towards wildlife and nature, right? Like it all depends on like the context that we're interacting or observing the wildlife behavior.
Another thing about like really learning to appreciate wildlife, it's not just to know like, oh, you have so many species or we got so many more than the next guy. And apart from all this, sometimes we also underestimate actually how intelligent they are. And a lot of the species, like I'm not just talking about monkeys, otters, even crocodiles. Like wild boars, actually they are extremely intelligent animals. When I was in Ubin, right, and then when it was durian season, then the wild boars would go after the durians, right? But being a wild boar, like how are you going to open a durian? So maybe this is a challenge to you guys. If you are a wild boar now, you have strong teeth, you have a strong neck, you have strong hooves, you have tusks. How are you going to open a durian?
You go and put it at my neck and then I squeeze.
So now you know what I mean when I say that the wild boar actually higher intelligence than most people.
So what did the wild boar do?
So the wild boar was observed to be actually scraping a depression in the ground. And then with its nose, it pushed the durian in. So the durian rolled into the depression, right? Now it's not rolling around anymore. And then use its hooves to open it.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right? Could you have thought of that if you're a wild boar?
Probably not.
See?
Yeah.
I think if I were to frame this, right, it's actually about how like wildlife, come in a package, right? In our terms, we call it ecosystem. We can't just have like one without the other. When I'm out looking for, let's say, colugos, right? I'm not just looking for a charismatic megafauna or rather a charismatic fauna. I'm also like on the way gonna find many other animals that night, right? And if I want to, my guest asked me to look for a pangolin, I probably will not find a pangolin, but I'll find every other creature that is part of the ecosystem with the pangolins.
I think you cannot pick and choose what you get from an ecosystem, and you will have the benefits and some of the inconveniences of living in a forested, like heavily densely forested area. Like you have very cool air, very nice shade, but you also get like bees, you might have geckos on the walls and stuff like that. Again, these are actually quite minor inconveniences, but yeah, I guess it's up to like public education on like if you want to stay near like forested areas, you have to deal with all this. You also have to deal with macaques. Or like actually when I say deal with it, it's not like from a like population management point of view, it's more like mitigation measures. So if you know there are going to be like macaques in your areas, you should close your windows, you should clear your trash, you don't have like fruits lying out on the table with your window open. Like that's just inviting a macaque to come in. So it's all these like measures that you can actually take to remove or like lower these inconveniences for you, but a lot of people don't know that.
So thus far, we've talked a lot about human-wildlife interactions and public perceptions of wildlife. Going forward, I'd just like to ask, what's your personal vision for Singapore as a city in nature?
What it means for like Singaporeans to have a city in nature, I guess it's up to them to decide. But personally, my vision for like city in nature is where like, if a member of public actually sees a python sleeping in a forested area, maybe Bishan Park on a shrub or something like that, the first thing they do is like take photo and upload to like Facebook and Instagram, like with a happy comment like, hey, I just saw a really cool like sighting in Bishan Park, rather than like activate acres, activate NParks contractors to come and remove something that's just sleeping and it's not actually even in any danger of affecting somebody.
You move into a HDB flat, you don't get to choose your neighbors, right? If it's brand new or not brand new, you don't get to choose your neighbors, right? So but you try to coexist, and this is Singapore is a multiracial, and we have gotten to where we are so far because there's always been this amount of tolerance and understanding. And I think we can use that same skill set and apply it to living with wildlife. I think if we all have a better understanding of that wildlife, it will go a very, very long way.
I think personally, I would echo the sentiments of Choon Beng and Ingg, where to move forward is very important for Singaporeans on a larger scale to understand what we have, because a lot of them don't know what's in our forests. It's definitely very important to take the educational route and also to make people understand how much nature actually contributes to us as a country, and not only in the sense of, cooling the country down or providing us with fresh air and things like that, but more so of the mental health as well. Because being in nature, being around nature, constantly seeing plants around you does have a great effect on boosting your mental health as well. We cannot expect everyone in Singapore to love wildlife or love nature as much as us. Right? I think, but what we should strive towards is not inflicting harm or undue harm on wildlife, or not disturbing them when they don't have to be disturbed.
And with that, we've come to the end of our episode. Thank you, Ingg, Ingg Thong, and Choon Beng for joining us today. Check out NParks Wildlife Booklet on our website for more information about wildlife companions in Singapore and what we can do when we encounter them. Do share your thoughts about this discussion with us on NParks socials and give us a follow if you've enjoyed our content. My name is Xiaoyun, and thank you so much for listening to That's Wow. Stay tuned for more exciting conversations in the episodes to come.